Now, I bet a whole lot of us is planning some big trip out of town right now for the summer, but I gotta remind you, you probably don't need to go as far away as you think, because Illinois is in the middle of everything. Whether you are looking for adventures in breathtaking state parks, check. Explore the neon nostalgia of Route 66, check. Or want to make the most of summertime shot like me, check. And Enjoy Illinois can help you plan your getaway or help you convince your people to come visit you this time. Find just what you're looking for and a little more at enjoyillinois.com. What's up, y'all? It's Jacoby here. At the end of today's episode, we got a sponsor segment by Enjoy Illinois. Corey Job is in the building to talk with me about the ultimate Route 66 road trip, from one-of-a-kind roadside attractions and giant photo ops to historic diners and boutique stays and can't-miss stops across the state. It's brought to you by Enjoy Illinois, and trust me, it's a lot of fire stuff on this road trip itinerary, y'all. I think you're going to want to listen. So stick around, and we're going to help you plan the perfect Illinois road trip, whether you're in for the food, the nostalgia, or just a really good excuse to hit the road. Today on CityCast Chicago, will Mayor Johnson block the new pick for CHA CEO? Is American Airlines seriously offering bus flights? And what has happened since the Hawks last made the playoffs? It's Monday, April 6th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. We've got executive producer Simone Alicea joining us. How you feeling, my friend?
I'm all right, Jacoby. How are you?
I am doing well overall. Gee, I feel like personnel conversations has been a constant part of Mayor Johnson's tenure. And early on, right, he was officially sworn in May of 2023. By August, he was getting rid of his first major department head, Allison Arwoody at Chicago Department of Public Health, but he had a replacement for that by November. And so we were like, okay, he's going to shake things up, but it seems like things will move quickly. Well, since then, Simone, he has lost the permanent head of CTA, the permanent head of the Chicago Housing Authority. Other agencies had long-term interim leaders. Just recently, Animal Care and Control named a permanent head after 3 years with an interim. We finally got through Chicago Public Schools. And then CHA at the end of March decided, hey, we've been without a permanent leader since November 2024 when Tracy Scott left. We are going to name our own head. The mayor's desired pick has been in limbo since the summer of 2025. We are going to name a new CEO who is going to start in April. So we were like, hey, Simone, we checking another one off the box, but hold your horses, back things up, because that may not go down as smoothly as it seemed. Let's jump into this one, Simone. Why is Mayor Johnson challenging and potentially legally going to challenge the board of the Chicago Housing Authority appointing Keith Pettigrew as their new CEO?
Boy, you want to talk about messy. I thought CPS was messy.
As I was reading through it, I wasn't enjoying it as much as I was a little entertained by it. So maybe that's not a good thing.
It does feel like reading sort of reality TV gossip column style stuff, except it's about the housing authority of the country's third largest city, overseeing,
the largest owner of rental properties in
the
Chicago.
City of Chicago, 65,000 households, right?
Notorious history of a waiting list that takes years, right? We're still dealing with the fallout of shuttering Chicago's massive public housing stock and tearing down
during an
high-rise.
affordable housing crisis, right? Like so right. Let's get that right off the bat.
Right.
Right, of what we've got going on here. So this leadership boondoggle, as you said, Tracy Scott steps down in 2024. Mayor Brandon Johnson in 2025 puts forth a former alderman, Walter Burnett. Burnett had retired from the city council, and then they appointed his son to take his old seat.
But also he stepped down with the belief that he was going to be named the leader of the Chicago Housing Authority, at least from all the reports.
Well, and again, because that's who the mayor had sort of said that this is my pick. And it's interesting because it's important to know that for these sister agencies, so CHA is a sister agency of the city of Chicago. The mayor appoints board members, and the board members have terms, but technically it's up to the board to make appointments for CEO. CPS kind of works the same way, except of course now we have a partially elected school board, so that complicates things there, right? But historically, right, there is a strong correlation between what the mayor wants and what the board does, right?
Exactly.
In this case, this board, there are only a couple of people who were appointed by Johnson himself.
Some of these people go back to Mayor Rahm Emanuel.
Even Mayor Daley. Yeah. Yeah. And so, there is like a mix of people on this board, but still with these sister agencies, there's historically quite a bit more alignment of when the mayor says, this is who I would like, this is kind of where you're going to go. This board was like, no, thank you. And Burnett, and also there were a lot of CHA residents who really questioned the idea of Burnett leading the agency. Burnett himself has always touted the fact that he grew up in Cabrini Green, right? It's interesting because the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development has come out and said that kind of recommended against appointing Burnett over conflicts of interests because of I think it's because of property Burnett owns. Is that what it was, Jacoby?
Yes. Burnett and his wife have owned property and I think been landlords for CHA tenants.
For people who have received vouchers, which of course, like, that only kind of became a thing because, and this name is going to become important, the president of the CHA board,
Matthew Brewer, was named by the board as the operator, and he was named as president of the board following another board member, Angela Herlock, stepping down last year.
There was some board shifting around. So Brewer had sent a letter to HUD about Burnett's potential conflict. So initially the board was already sort of like, hey, we don't think Burnett is the right guy. Then in mid-March, as you say, so we kind of didn't hear a lot about the CHA CEO search from then.
No, back in September 2025, Mayor Johnson was hoping that the board would call a special meeting to appoint Burnett. Sometime before this, in August, as you point out, Brewer has sent this letter to HUD questioning conflict of interest. HUD put the pause on things and was like, until we approve this, you can't move forward. But we talking about the federal government here. So it's not like they quickly got to it or they, had a lot of motivation to move this process forward. But does seem like a lot of it is some of the pushback that has been coming from the board at large, but, Brewer specifically.
We're going to get in. Yeah, Brewer specifically. We're going to get into that. So, okay. So we don't hear a lot, all right, about this selection process. Then fast forward to mid-March. There is a special meeting. And on the agenda of that meeting, it says there's going to be a closed session that involves a discussion of personnel, but it does not indicate anywhere that there is going to be a vote on a new CEO. However, it is revealed that the board voted 7-2 with one member abstaining to hire Keith Pettigrew, who currently oversees public housing in DC. And
again,
Johnson,
this is in the board's. Technically, the board selects who it is. So this is within their power. This is within their power. Johnson challenges how they go about it.
Right. So Johnson, number one, is upset that they pick somebody else that he didn't want, right? Let's start there.
Smack in the face.
But sort of in official statements, and what he is taking issue with is he is claiming that the board violated the Open Public Meetings Act. Brewer is saying that, no, we followed all the correct procedures. But even at the time, members of the public who were at the meeting, including some CHA residents, were sort of like, hey, why didn't you tell us you were going to be voting on the CEO? Like, this is kind of messed up. Like, this is a big deal. Like, we didn't. And then on top of that, during that meeting where they went to where they were debating, one of the board members who ended up voting no, Deborah Parker, she was like, I've never even met this guy. How do you want me to vote on someone you've never met? Again, Brewer says that there was a committee that selected these people, that put forward like the name for the full board to vote on. There's a lot going on here. Now, Johnson wants to replace Brewer as the chair of the CEO board. He wants to replace him.
He's already done that. He's already
he says he's already done that.
Right.
He says he's replaced him. He's like, because he's the mayor, he makes appointments to the board or whatever. He's like, you're no longer the head of the board. I'm instilling one of my appointees, Jawanza Malone, as head of the board. Except Brewer has communicated with the rest of the board and is like, actually, I'm still in charge until further notice. That's actually not how this goes, and we should continue with business as usual. And Keith Pettigrew is still going to be our nominee, and like, we're not changing anything.
In addition to that, because the board named him operating chairman, it kind of feels, maybe I'm getting this wrong, that he's saying that position supersedes whatever the mayor says his role on the board is. That as appointed operator of the chairman by the board, he can still conduct his official duties, even as Jawanza Malone is named the chair by the mayor, which again, Malone, the other person who voted against the appointment of Keith Pettigrew.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Here's the other wild thing on top of this, right? So I mentioned that there were members of the public at that meeting where they voted on Keith Pettigrew, including CHA residents who were like, this seems like this seems sketchy. On top of that, now the Central Advisory Council, which is made up of longtime CHA residents, they're criticizing the mayor for, and like have signed a letter in support of Pettigrew's appointment. I think what's getting lost in all of this is like, is Pettigrew a good choice to run CHA? I gotta say, and I said this when we were talking about the drama at CPS, if I'm Pettigrew, I don't know that I want to walk into a situation like this. You know what I mean? Like, is this a place I really want to be employed?
Especially because the mayor appoints these people, some folks like Brewer will be coming up for like the end of his term is in July.
Right.
And so
that's the other wild thing is the idea of removing Brewer a few months before the end of the term.
Right. He will likely get to see the end of his term. But a point I made earlier, the mayor has already tried to nominate people to replace folks on this board, and that's been held up in a city council committee. And so what does it mean if when the mayor is trying to reconfigure this board, city council doesn't play ball with his right. desire
let's add in a whole other
layer to this,
lawmakers into this.
You have Brewer, who seems to be sending all signals to the board and to the broader public that they remain in control of the board, and that, all of this is the distraction from doing the work to help Chicagoans and like build up confidence in Chicago's public housing. Which he's not wrong, right? But again, doesn't get to the question I have, which is accusing the mayor of playing politic with this role, wanting to install an ally while simultaneously taking steps to undermine what I agree has been a rubber stamp process, but would also seem to take them out of power.
Right, to solidify your own power.
Yes.
It kind of reeks on both sides.
Yeah, it feels as if both people are in a very public leverage game. And, I can't speak to Brewer's intention, but if I was in his shoes, I could imagine being emboldened by the way other people have pushed back against the mayor's personnel decisions in particular. But it seems like right now he does have some leverage amongst his colleagues. And
again, my question always comes back to who is actually the right person to lead CHA in this time, right? Who is the right person to continue work on the promises of public housing, and who is going to take a leadership role that CHA should be taking in helping more people in Chicago afford find housing and be able to afford housing, and also who is going to be a good person to work with a federal Department of Housing and Urban Development that is likely hostile to the city of Chicago.
Who's going to be the person that actually gets row homes from former Cabrini to Lathrop to Pullman, invested in and turned back into suitable housing for Chicagoans? I agree with you. This department is at a crisis point because the city's affordable housing state is at a crisis point. And I know for many, as I've read in a couple articles, for many people who are CHA residents who have major concerns about the future of CHA, this entire spat and drama is doing nothing but chipping at morale and continuing people's lack of confidence in the agency. All right, come on. Spring in Chicago really trying us this year out the gate. We done got the wind and the rain and the hail and the thunder. And if we being honest, it's probably revealed some of our windows to be a little fool. Luckily, the pros at Window Nation can help you get new energy efficient windows at a great price. Window Nation's The More You Buy, The More You Save sale is going on right now, where you can get up to 50% off all the windows for your home. You heard me correct. Half off. The experts will make sure your new windows fit perfectly and keep your home comfortable all year round, and they're in and they're out, and those windows gonna be easy to open when we do finally get them sunny days. But don't wait, the sale ends soon, and you need windows that help you get through the weather we got right now. Schedule a fast free consultation at windownation.com. All right, Simone, so I am a little confused with this next story. We've talked a little bit about Midway and O'Hare in recent months, from the ongoing battle from air supremacy between United and American, what's going on with TSA workers, how long will they get these paychecks before we're staring down another government shutdown. But in the midst of all of that, American Airlines, who is trying to grow its number of gates, its influence at O'Hare, has made a recent move to connect people who are closer to regional airports, think Rockford, think South Bend, Indiana, to the major hub that is O'Hare. But they're not using like small regional planes necessarily to do that. What's going on here? What's going on with Airbus American?
Yeah. Well, you say, careful. Airbus is an actual plane maker.
It's its own. It's their own people. What's going on?
What's going on with CTA? Cover the Boeing Airbus wars very closely.
What's going on with American Airlines CTA in the sky?
You might have seen this if you were scrolling on TikTok. Somebody who had booked a quote unquote flight from Rockford to Chicago in order to get from Chicago to a different destination, to a larger destination. They go through security at the airport, cool. And then they go to where, their ticket tells them to go. And there's a bus on the tarmac. Okay, cool. Maybe you need to take a bus to the plane, right?
I had to get on a shuttle a couple times.
Sure. But the bus keeps going.
Why are you saying like that?
And going.
So the bus not only leaves the tarmac, it leaves the airport. Next thing we know, we're on the highway.
And then you're on the highway. So there's this video, this person, this video that went viral, and this person is sort of showing like, oh, when you thought you had a flight, but actually it's a bus. And it's a bus, quote unquote, flight from Rockford to O'Hare. And, so the Tribune and Washington Post covered this too, was talking to American about this. And so here's the deal. Here's how this works. American and some other airlines, I think, have done this too, is working with a company called Landline. And the idea is for people who, are closer to these smaller regional airports that don't have as many flights to as many places, right? Who need to connect to to get to those places, need to connect to a flight at a larger airport like O'Hare. They can sort of book these
landline buses.
These landline buses to, instead of flying out of Rockford in like a regional kind of like small air trip, you could take a bus from Rockford to O'Hare. to then catch your flight out of O'Hare to the bigger place.
So when I first read this, I actually didn't see what the problem was, but I'm going to tell you why. I didn't realize there were regional airports in Rockford or South Bend. So what I was reading was American Airlines essentially has bundled a ticket for you. They'll give you a bus to O'Hare and then your ticket and then your flight out to wherever you're going from there. And I was like, well, that makes sense, the sort of bundle cost, because I don't necessarily want to be booking a Megabus or booking a Greyhound or booking an Amtrak, booking some alternative form of travel to get to the airport. The idea that the airline is going to let me do all that at once and I don't have to go through a third party service like, your Expedia, your hotels.com. That sounded dope. But the more I read, it seems that this person thought they were booking a flight. Right. Everything they did in the process, at least from their perspective, American Airlines was communicating to them as if this is just another flight.
The Washington Post story gets into a person who is flying from, who was going from Detroit to Atlantic City. And they had so their last leg was the bus. They went from Detroit to Philly and then ended up on a bus to Atlantic City, not realizing that their last leg was a bus. And, they shared the confirmation emails they got that said, and the way that the email is set up is your flight from Philadelphia to Atlantic City is run by Landline. Okay. So if you don't know what that company is, and then it said it was a bus. Although again, I don't know that actually communicates that well that you're going to be on a bus that's on the ground if you say your flight is on a bus. That's just, I don't know, man. I work, maybe it's because I work in communications that I see the issue right away.
It feels like maybe there's a slight intention to leave it vague.
Confusion.
Yeah.
If you watch the TikToks, those buses are pretty nice.
Okay. I didn't see the top.
They are. You gotta watch the talk because the buses are they're nice charter buses, okay? Where it's the seats are frankly, frankly, the experience is nicer than probably most economy seats on a plane. The seats are bigger, you've got more leg room, they've got the TVs coming down, they're doing snacks, there's internet on the bus too. And so it's not a bad looking experience as far as bus travel goes.
I'm pulling up the TikTok. Let me see.
I don't think she speaks at all. So.
Not the saxophones though.
Because again, if you thought you were gonna fly, but you end up on a bus,
I've ridden a ton of these buses from Peoria to Chicago, and even from Syracuse to Chicago, coming home from school. And it does look like there is more going on here. This kind of looks a little bit like the buses we would get to go to nationals or something, but just to be told I'm gonna have to sit on the bus for 2 to 3 hours. If I was not preparing for that at all, and I paid for a check bag and I still got this bag with me.
I don't personally have strong preferences flying over I get car sick either way. I get motion sick regardless. So I if I had to do a last leg on a bus that had better leg room, I might take that over a shorter plane ride, frankly. I
just wonder, what's the cost difference? Is there any cost difference between what these flights used to cost and what the bus costs? Because it does feel like
those sort of short flights use up a lot of energy, right? That's a lot of fuel. 100%. A plane takes way more fuel than even for a short flight than a bus does. And so I think on the one hand, you kind of have that going for it. I don't know. So it seems like it's partly a cost measure, but I think it's also sort of the availability of airlines to sort of offer more locations. That is more, I think it's less about saving costs necessarily, though I think that's part of it, and saving energy costs. I think that's part of it. But I think the other part of it is being able to offer more options, which maybe then gets you more customers.
Do you think these regional airports just slowly become bus terminals?
I don't know about that.
I think if informed properly, I'm not completely...
I don't hate the idea.
I don't completely hate the idea. Again, being shocked to find out that I showed up to the airport and I got to get on a bus, that'll probably make me mad for a little bit. But also, Kobe, what was you doing in Rockford or South Bend? No offense to the people who live there.
But Atlantic City is
Kobe,
one of those places. What the hell
was you doing in Atlantic City? What was you doing there?
That's a place people go. People do stuff there.
I feel you. But I will say, I've had to fly into like one part of Kansas and then make my way all the way to Lawrence for like events. Like I'm constantly going to smaller towns, but I would love to hear y'all's opinions on this. 773-780-0246. Do you love or hate the idea of a flight bus bundle? Simone, last week, following in the footsteps of the Bulls, who were eliminated from playoff contention at the end of March, the Blackhawks have officially closed the window on any chance that they will make the playoffs in 2026, running up their playoff drought to 6 years, which I think is currently, I wrote this down, the longest in Chicago. The Cubs made it last year. The Bulls made it 4 years ago. The Sox made it 5 years ago.
Okay.
The Sky, too. The Bears ended a 5-year drought last year. The Stars were in the playoffs 2 years ago, but they played for the championship in 2021. And the Fire ended an 8-year drought last year. So it was between the Hawks and the Fire, and now the Hawks remain. I am not the biggest hockey fan in Chicago. I probably couldn't tell you all of the best players on the team. I have been following more since they got the phenom that is Connor Bedard. I've never actually been to a Hawks game in person, and I wanted to make that a mission of mine. But I will say on this accord, I'm a bandwagoner. I'm a bit of a bandwagon. If it ain't good, I ain't really paying attention. And so I haven't been entirely paying attention for the last few years. And so we thought we could cover some of the things that have happened in the 6 years since the Hawks were last in the playoffs. But somehow I do feel like I have to get one right out the way. And that's, of course, the Chicago Blackhawks having to settle multiple lawsuits connected to a major sex abuse scandal, which involved a former allegations made by a former player against a former coach. And those allegations being that the team knew about this and pushed it under the rug as they were going through their early 2010s championship dynasty run. They've had to settle, again, multiple lawsuits connected to this. They say they have replaced bad actors, brought in new leadership, moved forward from this. But I will say that is one of the big things that have happened in the 6 years since they were using their playoff success to obfuscate accountability.
Well, and you have to imagine it has some effect on their performance on the ice, right? Like you can't really divorce one from the other.
But yeah, some other things that have happened.
Some non-Blackhawks related things that have happened
in the city since 2020. One includes us. Last time they went in the playoffs, I ain't know who you was, G. I never even heard of you. And CityCast wasn't a thing.
Yeah. Our entire reason for being did not exist. I think the other big thing since the Blackhawks were last in the playoffs again. So this was the COVID playoffs. So it was like fall 2020, I think, or maybe summer 2020 when they actually played. Because the season was kind of cut short in March. So I think the biggest thing is we have a COVID vaccine. The last time we were in the playoffs, the Blackhawks were in the playoffs, was pre-COVID vaccine.
Yep. Still pretty much summertime lockdown.
Yeah, like I was still living in Seattle. I was very much inside in my tiny apartment. I think it's post washing groceries, but still very much on the inside. My other favorite thing that has happened since the Blackhawks were last in the playoffs, they were in the playoffs before ChatGPT was released. That is a pre-ChatGPT world that the Blackhawks were in. ChatGPT was released in 2022
we were
by
in a
OpenAI.
Completely different bubble at the time. Yeah, pre-ChatGPT and all of these AI platforms popping up. We've covered the Sox, multiple mayors. So 2020, Lori Lightfoot was mayor. But if you count their last regular appearance, which was in like sort of non-COVID weird pandemic appearance, that was in 2017. So that was 3 mayors ago. Rahm Emanuel was mayor. Even the 2020 appearance, I think that's 3 entirely new school boards ago. Mhm.
if not 4. It's at least 3.
It's at least 3, maybe more than
It's
that.
at least 3 school boards ago. Yeah.
In the time that they haven't made the playoffs, Southside got picked up from Comedy Central to HBO and then canceled. The Bear started and will likely end its run before the next Hawks season
This
even
year?
starts. And so
Yeah.
2 major TV shows completely missed the Hawks playoff era.
I know. No, we don't get to see the Hawks playoff representation in
Ain't nobody making
some of our
no. It's all 10-year anniversary at this point, which again is, we just finished the final 10-year celebration of that 15 title. And so we're out of our anniversary window until 2030. And so nothing
Jacoby,
like that
you track
keeps
anniversaries. You track anniversaries
Don't do this to
more
me, G.
closely than anybody else I know. You are constantly, you know exactly when every sports team's anniversary is coming up and which one it is.
I know when everybody won a title last. 16 for the Cubs, 21 for the Sky, 98 for the Bulls, 85 for the Bears, 15 for the Hawks.
You are tracking them so closely.
So close,
because it's so funny. Every
all...
time we talk about sports, you bring it up and like when the next one is.
As a Bulls fan, I'm holding on to 30-year anniversaries. Hawks fans, you out of your 10-year window, so you got to wait till the 20. Bears fans, we just celebrated 40 years. Like that's a pretty hard pill to swallow. And again, I do think as a city writ large, when you take all of our championships into account, I don't think we have a lot to complain about. The fact that we do have multiple dynasties.
Well, we have old teams in our leagues, in baseball,
exactly.
in football, and in hockey.
Old teams who have had their, like Sox and Cubs, they had their heyday 100+ years ago.
And their scandals.
Yeah, right. They've both since had 100-year streaks and broken them. I think it's going to be a while until Hawks fans can even, like, you could be mad, right? We can constantly talk about, is ownership doing enough? Y'all got a whole $7 billion development happening outside of 2 losing franchises right now. Like, where are the priorities at this time? But I do think overall, you got to kind of swallow some perspective and remember, 3 chips in 5 years. It means you can't really woe is me all too often. And so a terrible playoff drought, one in which we went from Trump to Biden back to Trump, right? A lot of terrible, terrible things that have happened. And so again, some perspective here. But my hope is that they get it together, because from everything I read, it's not like they are far off, right? We'll wait and see, but I'm not holding my breath on this one. I want to give a huge thank you to our executive producer, Simone Alicea. It has been an absolute joy recording these with you.
Hey, thanks, Jacoby.
Stick around. Up next, we've got a segment sponsored by Enjoy Illinois about how to get the most out of the legendary Route 66. Hey, I am here with Corey Joe, President and CEO of Great Rivers and Routes Tourism Bureau, and we've got your guide to Route 66 across Illinois during its centennial celebration. Corey, welcome to CityCast.
Thank you for having me, Jacoby. Excited to talk everything about Route 66 and Centennial Year.
I'm so glad to have you here. Last year, we actually took our listeners through our very own guide to Route 66 in the city. We started our journey on the famous Mother Road at Adams in Michigan. I know in celebration of 100 years, that's moving to Navy Pier. So it goes pier from pier, ending out in Santa Monica. But today we're doing a real road trip down I-55 toward the Missouri border. All in all, you could probably get a great couple of days out of it with some stops along the way. So say we set off in the morning. It's been less than 2 hours. Tell us what we're going to find in Pontiac to help really get us in that Route 66 spirit.
Pontiac is a small town in the Midwest on Route 66, which has several museums. The entire square is loaded with free museums for people to visit. The Pontiac Automobile has a Pontiac museum, the Pontiac Oakland Museum in downtown Pontiac. But the most famous stop I think people will relate to is the Route 66 Shield, the largest Route 66 mural shield in the United States, is in Pontiac. And it's been on the Lipton iced tea commercials. It's been on the Sports Illustrated cover of the magazine. You can literally pull your vehicle, your motorcycle, your RV right up in front of the shield and have your picture taken.
I mean, so many of the murals across Main Street are absolutely breathtaking, worth stopping and looking at. My favorite is the Daniels Oil mural. I'm pretty sure that's a 59 Bonneville in the mural. When I think of road trips across my life, even in adulthood, I think of the big stuff, right? What kind of big things can I see along Route 66 without ever leaving Illinois?
In Collinsville, Illinois, just before you go into Missouri, in Southwest Illinois, is the world's largest ketchup bottle water tower. It's spelled CATSUP, Catsup. That was the Brooks Ketchup Bottle Company. And we have several of these giants. They've dotted the road from Chicagoland all the way out to California. But Illinois has a very large collection of the giants. In Wilmington, Illinois, outside of Joliet, is the Gemini Giant. He actually holds a rocket ship. In Atlanta, Illinois, just north of Springfield, Illinois, it's home to the American Giants Museum. The Paul Bunyan Giant is another in Atlanta, where he's holding with the huge hot dog. And then when you get back down to Southwest Illinois again, in Granite City, Illinois, they have 5 giants, and then they have a 20-foot tall giant that is dedicated to the union workers and the steel mill workers and the steel mills that still exist in Granite City. So we're kind of the land of giants in Illinois. There are so many of them, and more to come this year.
You know, obviously you got the 4-day itinerary plan, so people don't have to do this all in 24 hours, because clearly there's just so much to see. Where should people stay the night? Where should they rest their head?
A couple of unique stops in Springfield, Illinois. They've got a few historic B&Bs and inns. The Inn at 835 is this really classic restored bed and breakfast. In Edwardsville, Illinois, you have the Urban Collective Boutique Hotel, which is every room is a different theme. Those are a couple places you can rest your head along Route 66 that are unique.
And I love that there's a different vibe no matter what you're looking for. Like the Passfield House, for example, is your steps away from the Capitol Building, the State Museum, the Governor's Mansion, some national historic sites like Lincoln's Home. We talked about Urban Collective Boutique Hotel with all of the restaurants. If you wanted to get out in nature, you can go to Aries Resort in Grafton.
In Southwest Illinois, just minutes from downtown St. Louis, is where the Mother Road meets the River Road. Also within that area is the confluence of the Illinois, Mississippi, and Missouri rivers. And there's everything from horseback riding to kayaking on the Mississippi, bird watching.
Now, obviously, the guy wouldn't be complete if we ain't talk about food. Where can I stop to eat and drink along this way?
You know, we have the classic diners and drive-ins, but there's some unique food finds. The corn dog was invented in Springfield at the Cozy Dog, and the Cozy Dog still exists today. It welcomes visitors from all over the world. There's something special about the batter they use. I've had many corn dogs in my day, but this one takes it. And then further south, I think probably the most unique thing. So Collinsville is known. They grow 80% of the world's horseradish right on Route 66. And there's an Illinois maker who is a distiller and a brewer called Old Herald Brewery and Distillery, and he distills a horseradish spirit or horseradish vodka that I'm telling you, Jacoby, is dynamite in a Bloody Mary. There's so many great burgers and malts and shakes. I run about 5 miles every morning just so I can keep up with all the food and beverage on Route 66 in the state.
You have given us things to learn, things to see, places to stay, eat, and some great pictures to take along the way. I really appreciate you, Corey, for making time for CityCast Chicago. To plan your own perfect Route 66, head to enjoyillinois.com and search for Route 66 Centennial. There you can find even more attractions and find out more about Centennial events, including a kickoff on my birthday, April 30th through May 1st in Joliet. We've also got a link in our show notes. Again, Corey Jobe, thank you again for making time.
Thank you.
And for everybody else, please head over to chicago.citycast.fm. We got old podcast episodes. You can subscribe to our newsletter. You can check out our events calendar. Speaking of events, I want you to put on your calendar, I got some good news. You can get your tickets now for the world premiere of Saffronia, a powerful new opera by interdisciplinary artist and Chicago's first ever poet laureate, Avery R. Young. It's inspired by his own family history. He is excited for it. I'm excited for it. He got the whole city up right now. And so April 17th, April 18th at Lyric Opera. Get your tickets now. I'm going to drop a link in the show notes. As always, I appreciate y'all for making time, for being here. This podcast does not work without the team behind it, but without the listeners who push it forward. And so hopefully y'all join me bright and early tomorrow. I'll talk to you then. Peace.